Garfield, I'm a big fan, and I was nervous when I came here.
I'm either gonna die or I'm gonna follow this.
Yeah.
And it was like Truman Show.
Are we gonna touch it? Is there anything we should be careful to not talk about?
No.
Andrew's lower back tattoo. The tasteful Deadline Hollywood font with the title. That might be tough for, right? Okay. All right. But the Penske Media on the back, like it kind of covers the whole umbrella. It's parent company, Andrew. And they just have them all. They own everything. They own all tap water. They got that too. All right. Fucking hell. All right. Okay.
I think we've begun.
We have. I think, yeah. Wait, are you asking first or?
I had just asked you. It must be hard for you in terms of anyone taking anything you say or do seriously ever.
Well, yeah, but I once worked with Will Ferrell, and I did that with. I was like everything he said, which was sometimes just as mundane as like was a little concerned about the prostate, but it turns out it's fine. I just giggle, and you realize, oh no, he had a moment there where he. So I have a bit of that, but I don't have. That is just a poorly constructed self-defense, maladaptive coping mechanism. It doesn't, I have a. It's like in movies when like there two people are struggling for control of the gun, and then suddenly the gun goes off and the lights go out, and for one terrible moment we kind of don't know who's been hit. Mm-hmm. It's like that's sort of like sometimes feels like my base emotion. So I have all these other things that kind of not just cover that up, but allow me to be at ease when I might not be at ease.
Alchemize, sublimate.
Yeah.
Move the energy into something.
But then never you never want to be, because like what you said is like, do people sometimes assume that?
Well, because you've said just for the people that weren't privy to our private conversations earlier, you've said some very sincere things to me, and I was wavering. I was like, how do I?
Oh, right. Well,
I don't want to laugh at something that's not meant to be. But it's laughed at.
No, but it's okay to laugh. I would never think when I meet people and I'm away from cameras and lights to ever put on a show, or even if I'm feeling crazy on the inside, I will be quiet and reserved and kind of, straight down the middle. So, because can you imagine like meeting people and you're just doing bits? It was actually, speaking of Will Ferrell, that's what I loved about him, which is that every time we chatted, it was about some matter of the heart. It wasn't like a bit, and then we would get into bits sometimes, but for the most part, he's a very thoughtful and sensitive person.
And not to make our variety actors and actors about Will Ferrell, but like the documentary that he just made is a kind of
Harper,
a beautiful, strange little opening into a part of him that we don't often get to have access to.
But I think that's the operating system too.
Yeah, exactly.
What would you say your operating system is? Like, what is your, if this isn't too personal, but what's the thing you kind of push against? Because having a public persona, that they never reconcile with the private, I don't think. I mean, very rarely.
Can you talk more about what you mean by that in terms of you?
What is your like baseline, like some people we meet people all the time. Some people are, their baseline is just joyful and optimistic. Some people are insecure. Some people are coiled with anxiety. Some people are all of them at once. Some of them are, I don't know.
I find it hard to describe. I find it hard to reduce or to minimize or to even put words on it. I think I'm a generally hopeful, positive. Gosh, it's hard to avoid cliche. I think I'm someone who is always looking for warmth and always looking for love and kindness in every room I'm in or in every piece of art I'm, engaging with or in any given moment. So I think I'm in, and I maybe that's just because. I think it's probably related to my mother, because she was that first umbilical connection. She was that to me. She was just this pure kind of angelic love energy, and has remained that ever since. With the complications that I don't need to go into, but like, I think that's my baseline. So what did your mother do to you? To make you think that always
well-
believe that someone might have been shot in the dark?
It was my dad, Andrew. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Does anyone have a crude sock puppet that I can use to explain this? Because I don't know how to do it unless I have one. No, I think is interesting to me about my relationship with my father, which was very complicated and difficult. My dad was a very I come from a middle class, kind of blue collar home, and my dad was just of that generation where it's just like he was Clint Eastwood, less is more. Simple grunts is how he communicated.
Okay, gotcha.
I think people tell themselves stories, and this sort of comes back to your worldview that you just mentioned about looking for those warmth and kindness. And people tell themselves stories about other people, and then I think we have some responsibility as we grow older and more mature and grow into who we actually are, to question that a little bit. And I've done that a bit more in the last 5 years, I would say, where I really know myself, where I didn't before. Like I didn't know myself until I was probably 40-ish.
Oh wow.
I feel at least, and that has been the greatest gift of getting older. Is like that's a superpower into itself. But I ask that question often: is that true? Was my dad as challenging as I like to think, or am I romanticizing that to pave over all these other things with whatever the drug is, accomplishment, or or whatever?
Yeah.
But the story is not true. It's not. Nobody's black and white like that. There's no like sort of binary code that tells us they're this or that.
But the wound is real. Whatever that wound is whether or not it was intentional, whether or not it was completely due to this person. But there's an old idea that I really like, which is we come into this world already wounded, and it's usually one of two of our parents knows exactly how to crack open that wound.
Yeah.
And actually, it's part of the destiny of each individual person to have that very specific wound cracked open so that we can actually live into our gifts.
Wow.
Because our greatest and deepest gifts are right next to that most primal kind of built-in wound.
Of course. But thank God for that. It gives us this. I have 4 kids, and I need to really start working on those wounds.
Start getting them. You start setting those arrows.
Where's the weak spot? The 5-year-old, no weak spot at all.
Oh wow, that's a weak spot.
Born on the same day as Napoleon. And it wasn't until 6 months ago where she realized that she was like, I can't. I was born on the same day as Napoleon Dynamite. I was like, I'm sorry, what? She was like, Napoleon Dynamite. I was like, no, Napoleon Bonaparte. Not the Utah dictator, the French. I'm not saying he's a dictator. But those stories we tell and those things that kind of screw us up or we think screwed us up are the exact weird kind of burgoo that gets us to carve a place out in the world. And I also noticed that story, letting go of that story has actually been one of the greatest gifts ever.
Really?
It's made me closer to my dad since he's passed.
As a spirit, yeah.
And what you said about, because I recently lost one of my closest friends in the world, and what you said about grief and how grief is this like sort of, I'm completely paraphrasing, but it's this like very powerful force and sort of torrent that feels kind of out of control, but it's sort of a manifestation of unexpressed love or love that has nowhere to go now. And that resonated with me in so many ways that I can't even count. And I was really grateful for that because I had to speak at his memorial, and he was the guy that really gave me every tool I use. Now, he's the guy that he was my university. I didn't even make it through high school. So I moved to Los Angeles. He was my, he was like, hey, he liked me, and that kind of made me like me. And I think, when you're at that age where you're trying on all your personalities like shirts, you're like, who am I?
Yeah.
And
Is he older than you?
Oh yeah, he was about 14 years older or so.
Okay.
Yeah,
he was a mentor. He was like some kind of mentor.
A comedy writer, but that appreciated old, forgotten things. And but he really, I wouldn't be in the fortunate position I am in this business if he hadn't kind of pushed me into writing rooms, like
Oh,
with real
man.
heavyweight, real writers.
That's beautiful.
And I'm super,
Oh.
super grateful to him. But you really helped me kind of understand. Sometimes you have a gift of like taking a huge concept, I've noticed, and turning it into a very simple construct. You're somebody who has a high emotional quotient, obviously, but also very intelligent as well. But that's a gift, by the way, that, you know,
Sorry.
you shrink wrap hell into these little tiny bite-sized
Sweet
pills.
bite-sized little.
Yeah.
That's kind of you to say. My mind is going in lots of different directions from what you've just shared, and I'm thinking about mentorship, and I'm thinking about how vital those moments of blessing
Mm.
that we all human beings absolutely need, and it's usually not in the family system. It's usually someone who is removed enough and objective enough to have no dog in the fight in a way. So your friend Eric was maybe the first, or
Yeah,
was
he was the
he?
first kind of, I mean, I saw him when I was just this desperately hungover 19-year-old on a general meeting with him. I didn't want to tell him, but I had thrown up in the rose bush outside of his bungalow. It was the only bush outside of the bungalow. I don't know how I hit it.
This was in LA. This was in a studio in LA.
He had a deal at 20th Century Fox.
How exciting must that day have been for you to go onto the Fox lot and vomit in the shrubs?
Right, I mean, terrible, but
It's fantastic though.
But Eric was so warm, and he had this energy where he was like, he was this person, and this was for the rest of his life, just showed up for people.
Yeah.
So when we did a memorial, it was 300 of his best friends, and nobody felt any kind of particular proprietary nature over him. They just felt that love and who he was. I mean, he was a guy, I remember I called him once from Germany, and I said I was having a terrible time. I must have been 22, and I was, homesick and heartbroken, and I said, I don't know, I'm gonna go to this place called the Grenadier Pub tomorrow. I think apparently they have a good meal, they have good food or something. And I got there finally the next day. It was in upper northern England, and in the back of the pub, he was sitting there. He'd flown from Los Angeles. 2 beers and a...
Holy shit.
Yeah, he's like that kind of guy where he
Oh
just,
my God.
Yeah,
like an angel on earth.
Yeah, he really used his overall deal with 20th Century Fox the right way. Did not produce any kind of work or shows or writing. He sort of did that. Now it's just living, and he did keep writing beautifully. But he was a guy that never said no to an adventure. And,
Oh, that's amazing.
But who was your mentor? Is there
Maya
somebody?
Margot. I was a very lost teenager. I was an athlete, and I gave all that up, and my brother was already a successful academic and training to be a doctor, and that kind of left this horrendous, like, there was a sense of like, oh, I guess I'm not needed in this. But anyway, I had this amazing drama teacher that came into my life at 16, and he basically said, I see you. I see that you have something here. And I was doing just a school play, and I was just like, I was like a dog with a bow, like, I'm either gonna die or I'm gonna follow this. And it was like Truman Show, like it was like the door opening in the sky.
But that's oftentimes it's a one
moment,
sentence, or
tiny little thing.
When we live in time, there's so much humanity, and there is a performance there that feels like I don't know, when I look at great performances, the first thing, and maybe it's lazy, but I think how close to this person's life, like they chose the story to tell. You obviously chose this story that you felt compelled to tell it. What is it about We Live in Time? What is it about that interconnected relationship with Florence Pugh's character, Almut, that made you go, yeah, I have to, that's the...
Oh God, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like, and it's obviously the thematic for the film, I've been initiated recently into a new visceral understanding of how fucking short this visit is on this planet, in this body, in this miracle. And I feel this crazy new urgency. I had a different kind of urgency in my 20s and my 30s, I think, which was, as you kind of referenced earlier, kind of patching over, like trying to deal with the woundedness in a way of like whatever that addiction is, whether it's validation or like planting a flag and going, I'm safe, right? My feet are here, and the sky isn't gonna fall, and I'm worthy in this kind of whatever capitalistic system. And now the urgency is very, it's like an urgency that was there previously has become much more predominant, which is a spiritual urgency, which is an urgency of like living life as fully and as vitally and as like I only want to do the things that that speak to my soul, that I feel like I am the vessel for to get into the world, whatever that is. Like there are certain great films that I will not be a part of because that's not for me. I don't know why, but it's just not for me. And then I'm like, oh, it was for that fucking person to get in there and do it. So like I feel with that one, it was just came across my desk and I was like, oh fuck, this is definitely for me. It was just that. It was just that simple. It was just like, oh no, this is definitely for me because of I'm living this right now. My dad is living this right now. I have friends who are living versions of this right now, and I don't know if anything matters more than love and a kind of awakening to how miraculous and how short and how sacred being alive is. And obviously, I think culturally right now, there's so much to point to a kind of a numbness and a sleepwalkingness, and a lack of awareness of how fucking, I don't know, how life matters, and that there's such a kind of destruction and a reduction of life mattering, or that a soul, that we all have a soul mattering. Like there's this kind of homogeny that I feel like we're all just being kind of like made into this globule of meaninglessness. So I'm just trying to kind of
or categorization. It's just you're this or you're this,
right?
You know, and the less nuance, the better. And I noticed that that I felt that watching the film, because it's sort of like obviously there was much about it that felt like it must have been personal, and I don't presume that. I mean, it may not be, but it sounds like some of it really was. But it's also like having just been to a memorial for a friend that I, was irreplaceable. 27 years of friendship and just gone.
Yeah.
So much of what we do here, and so much to me, and sort of what I talked about a little bit, was that heaven is actually what you leave behind.
Yes,
like
exactly.
my idea, I sort of framed it like my 5-year-old asked me the terrible question, what happens when we die?
Right.
And I went through it basically saying like, the memories of somebody that you love, like, your mom, my dad, or Eric for me, really, more than almost anyone I've ever lost is him. They change. They kind of morph. I can still see his face like it's right here, but they change into like what his actual kind of essence was or something. And then then it goes from that to like a place or a feeling. And it's also why I love movies, because when they're at their best, they transcend the medium and become a feeling or a place. And that place is like a house almost that I get to visit. And the walls are his sense of humor. The floor is his stupid walk. The roof above our head is his sometimes sadness and his joy and his kindness to others, and his acknowledgement of everyone regardless of what they did. And he treated a waiter or a busboy at a restaurant the same way he would treat a movie star, and I hated that.
Yeah, no, he was wrong for that.
Yeah, it was definitely wrong.
He missed the mark there.
But I sort of see it as a destination, and I felt when I was watching We Live in Time that it was like a place. The movie had a feeling.
That's nice, yeah.
And your interactions with Florence Pugh's character and how much room you left for her was like this radical act of generosity that you don't see in films too much, because we're very troubled by nuance sometimes, as studios tend to, drag the consumer down toward the bottom line by their wallet. Sometimes we leave all the other shit behind, and what I appreciated so much with the film, your performance, everyone's performance, and A24, who obviously make pretty special films, was that there was a lot of that, and there was room for that, and it was like felt like an experience that was special, because we don't get that kind of storytelling as often, anymore, that we live in that, like terms of endearment kind of feeling where you just get to sort of be in a place for a while.
Tobias. So sorry, but do we know each other?
I watched the film last night. I watched Deadpool Wolverine last night, and I hadn't seen it.
You watched it on your Apple Watch, didn't
I
you?
no, I had
That's how I watched We Live in Time, and I'm telling you, really fucking hard to like hold, the attention and stuff like that. You're like, oh fuck, this is like, how do kids do this?
Can you let me go somewhere?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
So I as soon as it started, I was like, there's no way. There's
That
no
you're gonna
way.
get through this.
There's no way they allowed him to do all of this. How the fuck
Yeah.
did you? Well, first of all, I think the audacity, because you're like the head writer on this film, which is kind of an amazing, place for you to be.
Yeah,
in.
I'm
It's
lucky
like-
to be able to, yeah.
Yeah, but it's also connected back to Eric, connected back to your giftedness. You're obviously you're doing something in writing that I don't think I don't know anyone else who's doing, in terms of peeling back the onion of the self-awareness and meta-ness, and also retaining a heart, and really providing a genuine service to fans, while not shying away from that, while also kind of mocking. The layers of self-mockery are kind of impossible to decipher. It's really inspiring because it does feel like a new form in a way. So first of all, I'm wondering how you got to the place of having the audacity to write in such a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth wall breaking kind of vibe. And then how did you convince everyone that it would work?
Well, that's a good question. I look at authorship and control, or however you want to frame it, as trust. Like, I have to, part of my job, well, I have several parts of the job, which is, one is that I have to convince the studio, who is, making a significant investment in, mine and Sean Levy's ability to land the plane on a dime. And our job is to return that investment. And that's really is a big construct of this business. And it's something that I found quite illuminative when it really snapped in 10 years ago to me, that is a part of the job. But
You mean making the money back?
I spent a long time doing, and I still want to revisit it, but I spent a long time doing work and roles that were incredibly fulfilling and nuanced and different and unexpected and charactery, and movies that were received really well by maybe critics and stuff, but not audiences. And I thought, whoa, I have to, if I want to continue to play and do this, I have to figure out how to work both sides of the room here and make sure that part of my job is choosing work that that will beget more of this experience that I love.
Was that, would you say, a practical consideration as well? Because it feels like not just practical. It feels not just survival. It feels like creative simultaneously as well. Like, I'm curious about that.
I had a point of view when I had no power, and I say no power very loosely because somebody in my position has,
of course,
I mean,
we're white guys.
Yeah, exactly. So you're like eased out with systemic power, and so I say that with a grain of salt. But what I mean is I would be on big movies, and I would be nervous, and I knew the stakes, but I had absolutely no input into what happens. And when you have a point of view and it can't be expressed, even though you try.
It's like something, a monkey rattling a cage. It's gonna like start chewing the bars.
Terrible feeling. And people, when you do try to express the point of view and you're sort of placated or told, that we're not gonna do that, or you say something that sort of feels reasonable, like, let's stop spending on spectacle and let's spend on character. Or like, why are we putting all the money in special effects when we could just write, and that's sort of dismissed. If that happens a couple of times, you sort of go, okay, but at the end of the day, they're not writing the story about how, Philistine movie bombs. They're saying they use the actor who's in it, right? So I own the bomb. So I felt like if I'm going to bomb or win, I want to have a say in it, and I want to have some authorship. And if I'm going to bomb, I want to be the architect of my own demise. I don't want to be a passenger on someone else's nose-diving jet plane.
Totally.
Wanted to be something, I wanted to be an Avenger.
Fuck the Avengers.
Yeah. I didn't make the cut, though. Same with the X-Men.
For the record, I'm less curious about this question. I think certain people might, want to know about.
I smell what you're stepping in, Andrew Garfield. And I will blow through this answer as quickly or as slowly as you want. I could find a previously undiscovered 8th circle of hell.
Speaking of lack of autonomy in creativity, I have a question for you about the Deadpool suit. The Deadpool suit, because it's evolved since you first slung it on to now, and I'm just curious about the evolution of that.
Well, I knew it. I could tell it on the tip of your tongue when we met backstage.
Honestly,
again.
I've been really holding it in.
I know. The suit is someone who knows what it's like to wear one of the full. Mine, of course, is made of individually wrapped Gaelic toffees.
Oh, wow.
My suit. The suits are tough, but to me, the suits are freeing in that I find it's clown work that I'm doing. That
yes. I love this. It's a great answer.
So my
a great answer.
Well, thank you. I have to rely on my voice for microfacial expressions, where you would normally have this. I rely on my body for more macro expressions.
So fun.
And all of that comes from being, well, my friend Eric a bit, he was obsessed with Jack Benny and Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd, Chaplin, and Marcel. And framing. So like the only person I'll argue with on a set is the cinematographer, because they will want to make the shot dynamic and move the camera, and I'll say static, lock that sucker off. It's always gonna be funnier to enter the frame than to find me and bring me in. It's suddenly it's making you part of the story, and
Exactly.
So,
God, how funny! It's so funny. It's such a simple thing that just is. It's so strange.
Yeah, but pushing through the suit is challenging, and you also, I look at suits a little bit differently, I think, is that, there's always got to be a why, and Deadpool wears the suit, because he's in a slightly militarized shame spiral, and his coping mechanism is humor. Wolverine is the one I was really worried about in the movie. Yeah, because right away, people are, bringing Hugh back in this iconic role and writing Wolverine dialogue is one of the scariest things I've ever done.
Oh,
also,
really?
Well, there's a scene you may remember in the van where he's, he just tears me apart.
Yeah,
and it's
I saw that scene before the film because it was a clip that most people were like, who loved the film, were like, this is like the essence of this dynamic and how incredible, and so.
But it's a gamble because he's saying more in that one monologue than he says in an entire movie typically. So like Sean and I were very worried about that. But the suit that he's wearing is a hair shirt, and that's how we sort of described it, which is it's a penance. It's he's wearing his shame.
Nice. Yeah.
And we will now have a visual totem.
That's cool.
When he's at the end of the film, when he's out of the suit, you feel this like. Like he's unburdened himself of this bag of rocks that he's carrying. Amazing. And I love narrative arcs. I love emotional arcs, and I really love visual arcs too. I think it's so the suits are very important for me. It's really is old-fashioned clown work.
Yeah, it's the best.
And then for Hugh, it's a huge component to why this character is back and why he exists.
I'll ask about Hugh. Obviously a beloved figure and someone who, you guys have a very close
17 years
friendship.
Yeah, he's just one of the best men I know.
Was he immediately excited, or did it take some convincing? What was that process?
It was very similar to the studio, which is the lazy story and the easy story is that they were obstructionist, or it's the exact opposite. Disney and Marvel, they were so supportive from the jump. I had one line that Bob Iger wanted out of the movie, and we took it out.
Which was?
I'll never repeat it. I promised I wouldn't.
Oh my God, you're a man of your word.
I will leak like a sieve.
Dude, you're a man of your word. That's beautiful.
So they were incredible partners. And Hugh authored his own return, but it was meant to be, because the first pitch I had for Marvel and Kevin Feige 5 years ago was a Deadpool Wolverine movie in the Rashomon style, which is his perspective and mine, and then an objective.
Oh, cool.
And they said no. I pitched the most idiotic movie. One was a Sundance movie I pitched them. No special effects, no conflict. There might be a scene
just
like any good
around.
Sundance movie where I don't know, it's a 4-minute oneer of me taking a shit or pissing or something that just tells the audience this is raw and vulnerable and we're going there. And then I pitched one where it's a two-hander with me and the hunter who shot Bambi's mom, which was, their answer was, we don't touch Bambi, Ryan. Like, okay, we don't touch Bambi.
It's the crossover that
yeah.
we've all been wanting.
So it was like a year and a half of just tap dancing until Hugh called and said, I want to come back and do this.
Oh, it was him that.
Yes.
Oh,
so it was
wow.
sort of weirdly fated. And I then went back to them and said, and they said yes.
I could tell you have a sort of don't get too close, I'll only break your heart vibe going here, but every other Wolverine would have really hurt me by now. And I'm sort of on the tick-tick, so upsy daisy, here we go.
I don't know if you found this in We Live in Time or any of the incredible body of work that you have, but like going into it, there's these deliberate choices that you guys made, and there's one that killed me, and it was, and I've been in my own version of it, but you and Florence Pugh's character are you're shaving her head.
Oh, yeah.
And it is one of those moments that when you have kids and you guys when we're going through something that is really hard,
Yeah.
and we are pulling back all of our emotions to stay kind of strong for our kids, it's also important to model
Yeah.
falling apart, what it looks like.
for sure.
Conflict resolution, how does that look?
Yeah.
You know, like to do things in front of them. But that I relate to, which is so grave and so intense, and parents sort of posturing and faking it around them. I find that to be, I sobbed in that scene, and I could sob now just thinking about it. Not only that, Florence is really shaving her head,
Yeah. Yeah.
which has got to be cathartic and
Yeah.
crazy and, feel
Yeah, powerful.
very emotional.
It was 2 cameras, 1 take, obviously, and then little cleanup bits. Trust and faith is everything, and I don't know about you, but I don't imagine I'm ever going to start something new and feel like I know how to do it. Like, I really don't think that's ever gonna. I'm 41, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm still. It's just an old friend at this point.
What is the nighttime skincare routine? 'Cause 41. Wow. What? Okay, sorry. Carry on. I was. No, we didn't need that. I didn't need that.
Thank you. It's a good. My mother, she always looked. She literally always looked 10 years younger than she was. So it's all down to her. But yeah, I remember I was in rehearsals for Angels in America that we were
Nice
doing.
light lift.
That we were doing, and it was like week 2 or week 3 of an 11-week process, and Tony Kushner comes to visit us in London. This is when we did the London run before the New York run. I have a relationship with Tony. I'm friendly with Tony through Mike Nichols, and we've been very excited about doing this together for a long time, and for me to play this part. And he's going to sit through for our first rough run through of Act 1 and 2 of Part 1 of Angels in America.
No pressure.
But I didn't feel I was like, you know what? I'm still in that kind of like.
Sometimes when it's so big, you just.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't fucking know. I'm still in that wonky, exploratory, I have no idea where this is going to go phase. And we do it, and I'm like, hey, yeah, we got through that. And I look at Tony. He can't look at me.
No.
He literally cannot make eye contact with me.
No.
This is all, going back to the stories we tell. This is the story that I have
Yeah, of course.
in the ticker tape in my head.
You later find out his eyes don't work. So that's what the
He
problem.
was going through some cataract issue.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, wait, no, he's really not able to look at me. Oh, and he's leaving.
God.
Oh, he said something to that person. He's leaving. Okay.
Oh no.
So literally, I get visited by the ghost of Christmas shame, and it's like it kind of like arrives again. Lights on my shoulder as I'm walking up the south bank
The
of.
face gets hot, the ears get hot.
Oh
Have you ever
yeah,
had that?
no,
Like,
yeah, no, totally. It's like, oh no, I would rather not be alive
Yes.
in this moment than be alive. Like there's no
Yeah.
there's no longing for life anymore.
It's a painful way to take my own life.
No, I wasn't. It wasn't so much that. It was more just like, what's the
Brûlée torch?
quickest?
It's a
and what's
brûlée
the-
torch, isn't it?
It wasn't like a self-punishing suicide that I wanted. I wanted just a very easy, like, just let me drift into the everything and remember none of this matters.
Yeah. You just want to walk straight into the ocean.
Straight into the river. There was the river right there. It's full of toxic waste. At some point, it'll get me. Like, I don't want any treatment.
I'm gonna fuck a microwave. That's what I'm gonna do.
But literally, and I mean that literally. I don't mean literally as in metaphorically.
No,
like,
yeah.
I was literally like, how do I not survive this?
But
'Cause
it's
I
a
don't
spectrum of
want to.
humanity. We all have those moments of
Yeah,
like
totally.
extraordinary extremes.
And I'm stood by the edge of the Thames, and I'm like, oh, hello, old friend.
Yes.
and he's like, yes, hello. And I'm like, well, okay, so we have 2 choices, I guess. It's like, we either throw ourselves into the river,
If
which
Capra were Kushner, Capra would be like, off you go. Off you go, George Bailey.
One of my favorite films of all time. Maybe number one.
I
Potentially number
probably
one.
revisited it a couple thousand times.
In terms of its essence, in terms of the things we
I don't
started
need
talking
to
about.
watch it all the time. I need to just be on.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
Like,
And then the other choice was to go back and go to the next rehearsal.
yes.
So I was like, okay, I guess I'll just go and rehearse again, and like live in that shame.
This is exactly why you're you, because I think people. No, I'm just take it, Garfield.
No, but I think it's
Just a
all
second, don't
artists.
you
I think
dare.
it's all creative people.
Probably ought to get going.
Why? Who says?
I don't know.
It's a Wonderful Life.
It is now that the movie worked on the scale that it
You
did.
have 10
it does.
minutes, Ryan.
It does. You know,
You've been told
I
it's 10
have an
minutes.
unquenchable thirst for validation, and I farm out my self-worth to external approval in this way that I. Honestly, I know shrinks will tell you steer away from that, but it's pretty damn gratifying.
It's been good for you.
It's my version just of a gigantic pile of coke. Is yeah, no.
No, but seriously though, what does the future hold for Deadpool and Wolverine and the franchise?
I don't know. I honestly, I'm not making this up. I don't. My feeling is that character works very well in two ways. One is scarcity and surprise. So
Yes.
you know, it'd been 6 years since the last one, and part of the reason is that it swallows my whole life. Like
Right,
there's
yeah.
you can't take your hand off the stick all the way through development, through post-production,
Yeah.
into marketing and promo, and then you kind of. And I have 4 kids, and I don't want to be. I don't ever want to be on a first name basis with any of them. No, I don't ever want to be absentee, and I don't ever want to miss stuff. I like trying to die inside when I, when I see their face and they have a competition or they do a sports thing or something, and I missed it, and so I was like, so I don't know what the future of Deadpool will be, but I do know that Sean and I made the movie to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and be a complete experience instead of a commercial for another one.
Great.
And I
Yeah, you can
love
feel that. Yeah,
and
you can feel it.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of like important sometimes to make space for a movie to just be a movie.
Yeah.
The other thing is I see Deadpool as a supporting character much more than he is a main, the center. We center him sometimes because they want, that's what they want. They want to, but you can't center him unless you take everything away from him. You have to like create a situation where he's so much the underdog.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can do that again. So I think if he comes back, it's going to be in a someone else's movie. Channing Tatum was so excited to play Gambit, and I would happily be the fifth banana in his movie or anyone else's. I love the currency of, you did this in Spider-Man No Way Home so beautifully, where you're weaving like DNA strands, culture, and a cultural conversation with a narrative in a movie. And it's a very, like, the power of redemption is something that like it's like being in an airplane trying to hit a bullseye from in the Grand Canyon. Like it's just a very difficult thing to, and you guys in that movie did it in such a way that I burst into tears, everybody burst into tears because you have all that cultural currency and cachet. Deadpool Wolverine, the best feelings I've ever had is sitting in Hall H at Comic-Con and watching Wesley Snipes cross the frame. And what's happening, and that people are crying, there's some people wailing, and what's happening is that they realize in an instant, without maybe intellectualizing it this exact way, but that they desperately missed this person, but they didn't know they missed him.
Right.
And that's like when you can get something like that,
right.
Those moments when you're back in the spider suit and you get this chance to do something that you didn't do before.
Totally.
It's the best feeling on earth. And it's why I think it's okay to also, to appreciate the spectrum of our business, which is that you make movies like We Live in Time and, Tick, Tick, Boom, and you're doing Angels in America. These are intimate kind of character pieces. And then there's also, you do these movies that are also people all over the world get to flood and have that collective effervescence in a movie theater of experiencing something really beautiful. I don't know, there's something about it that I feel like it's easy to dismiss sometimes, but what the emotion and the way you moved people in both of those movies, which are so different, is, I think, is fascinating and singular in a certain way, singular to you, like that you and only you were put on this earth to do those, you know? Sorry, you're getting it. I'm Garfield, I'm a big fan, and I was nervous when I came here.
Me too.
You went with the full blue, I went with the UPS delivery sort of feeling. I overthought it, I realized that, but that's because of you. I was nervous, I was excited. I have so many questions that I didn't get to, which I'm gonna drive home with you, I think, if it's all right. I've also been sleeping under your bed for a long time now. Wow, a Hastings mattress, those are expensive.
How did you know it was Hastings?
Hey, look, it's horsehair, it's of course
Not
it is.
Hastings, but...
Well, it's a Sealy Posturepedic, but on the one side, anyway, it doesn't matter. I have so many questions about We Live in Time, too, but did you miss playing Spider? Like, when you came back to that, how did that feel?
Yeah, lovely. Just lovely. It's not that I missed it. It felt undone. It felt undone for me. Like I imagine you felt with your version of that. Like,
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
it was just very gratifying. It was just very like, you know, it's like you're invited to a party and then the party ends slightly like prematurely than you wanted it to end.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I've got to reckon with kind of being disinvited to this party. And that's when like the work happens, right? That's when you start to really deal with your own stuff and your own relationship to self, relationship to perception, relationship to validation or to inclusion, disclusion, but it's all inside job stuff. There's nothing to do with the outside. It's just like you and you. Where have I felt like not invited to the party, and why is this hitting me in this way? So I did all of
primal too.
Yeah, so it was like a few years of that kind of like, and I'm so grateful for it in retrospect. And even during, I was like, yeah, this is soul work. This is like, it's so funny that it's been like prompted by this very but not funny at all, because it's like the 3-year-old. One of the first photos of me as a 3-year-old is in a Spider-Man costume that my mother made out of felt. So it's fucking like, it is primal. It's really, and I'm like, oh my God, this person, this character, it means so fucking much.
You also
to me.
set the table and the stage for the best kind of redemption. And honestly,
Dude, honestly, I'm
you
so,
were,
yeah.
You were an amazing Spider-Man.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
Amazing
Thank you.
Spider-Man. And I mean that from the bottom of my
very
heart.
kind,
You were
thank you.
so fluid and fun and kind of like you kept that metronome of like comedy mixed with like pathos that only a teenager would go. It's, I don't know, I was really
That's really, really kind. But coming back and Amy Pascal reaching out and asking me about it, it was like, yeah, being re-welcomed into the party, and it could be a party finally, because like kind of what you said about Deadpool being more of an adjacent peripheral, like the more scarce character. There was something so soothing about it being a playpen actually for the first time, like for me and Toby, for Toby and myself.
Well, when it gets to be that loose.
The pressure was on Tom. Tom had to hold that universe.
Is it like prison
together.
though? When you get into prison the first like hour, you gotta shank the biggest guy, and you gotta do it fast, and you can't let him see it coming, right? But in this instance, Tom, he's not giant, but he's were you just like this fucking kid? Did you get in there and just like take the toothbrush or whatever out of the prison wallet and just like quick, sort of Eric Bana style from what is that Australian movie?
Chopper.
Chopper,
yeah. What was cool was that like I was like, got you suckers, because like you invited me back to the party, but the plan all along was to absolutely undermine the whole process. Yeah. So, but also it was a beautiful thing to genuinely feel like you're a support of a Spider brother, and I do mean that sincerely. Like it was a genuinely lovely, and John Watts, such a great director, and he was so loose, he was so relaxed. I was like, so what are we gonna do about what's on the page? Because we need to work on it. I was like, yeah, we'll work on it. And he's like, okay, but when? It's like, well, we'll improvise a lot. I'm like, great. Great, really?
But isn't
It was
Isn't it the
beautiful.
best thing in the world when you're in a situation on a movie, like, because movies I think are really interesting in that they will talk to you. If you listen to them, they will speak to you and they'll speak to you loudly.
Yeah.
And sometimes when things go wrong, we're too focused on hanging onto the script
Yeah.
and too focused with the shot list.
Right.
But to look around and go, whoa, what's it actually telling us? Like,
Exactly.
what do we have?
So,
and I
yeah.
love that idea that you can. I love being able to pivot
Yeah.
and responsibly, not
No,
in
but
a way
it
that
was- it
stresses
was
people
that.
out, but
Because it was like suddenly like, oh, we have an opportunity that no one's ever had, where it's like a support, like a Spider-Man support group.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Let's really go down to like the nuts and bolts
course,
of like
yeah.
the studs. What could that look like? What's the dynamic that we could build that is completely specific and unique to these particular spider people?
I think We Live in Time has that looseness throughout the whole thing. I have to ask this because it was driving me crazy. There's a script, a great script.
Yeah.
But there's no way that you guys are, I mean, there's so much beautiful, like how Howard Hawks would overlap and have that real feeling. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would assume that looseness, which is like a lot of 70s movies always
Yeah.
felt like that, must come from you guys being on set and just play.
Not
Like,
often. I mean,
really?
it was very playful
Yeah.
in our dynamic and it didn't feel like performance, it felt like living. But the script was really fucking airtight. It was
that's
really,
a real
really
testament
precise.
to
Yeah, Nick
your
Payne
craft.
is an amazing writer.
And Florence Pugh is,
And
I mean,
Florence Pugh, yeah, she's a legit
one of the best
star.
living
Yeah,
actors
I
I've ever
agree.
seen.
I fully agree. So yeah, it was a combination of those things. I'm glad it felt loose because it felt loose to us. It felt honest and that lived through hope.
I think that's beautiful. Bryce Dessner, who did the music
Yeah.
on the movie, who's
Yeah.
part of the National, and
Yeah.
with the music, and it was. I would love that. I looked it up afterwards, like who did the music to this, and of course it was somebody who I was already a fan of.
Oh, nice.
Technically speaking, we still are, but legally speaking, we're also divorced.
This was a great conversation. Crack a joke or two?
2, please. Medium well, or over easy, whatever you choose.
But
Are we gonna touch it? Last time I saw you was the Golden Globes. Garfield sitting beside me and goes, "Hey, if you
yeah, we didn't
he
even
was
talk about
if they
that.
call your name and you win, don't kiss your wife, just kiss me."
Yeah.
And of course, Gosling, who absolutely did not deserve it. I'm actually a genuine nutty fan of his. But but he of course won for as he should. And I love that we were just sitting there and just like, nah, let's just do it anyway.
Make out. Yeah, I'm glad that you were game for that. I also retrospectively felt a little bit insensitive.
I did too.
towards Ryan's moment.
But I was grateful that it was in such a wide
Such
shot
deep
that
background.
nobody actually noticed until later.
Until everyone
And it was actually
noticed.
kind of perfect. Yeah. And then you kind of went, oh. Okay.
But I was able to apologize to Ryan
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
thankfully, And say I'm so sorry.
I actually just egged his house, which is super childish to do, but I didn't feel so great about losing. I want to say one thing.
Oh, come on.
I am
No more.
I am a first-time kisser, long-time fan. No, you can do no wrong in our house. My wife, her name's Blake. We love you in our house, and your work and your dedication. You
very
do
kind.
something that only you can do, and that's
very
a beautiful
kind.
thing to watch in action.
And same, ditto, fully. For
Ditto,
real.
like in Ghost, just so you can't say I love you back. You just gotta be ditto.
I love
and then
you.
I'm gonna
Hey,
die,
Ryan,
and then you're gonna.
I love you.
Hey, I love you desperately.